You're listening to Catalyst for Change, and my name is Jessica Huckabee, your host. I started this podcast to learn what makes people resilient after challenging events and how they've used those series of events as a catalyst for change in their life. You'll hear stories of resiliency and strength, so get ready, sit back, and be prepared to be inspired. Today I'm speaking to Carly Israel, one of the most positive people I've ever met. She has struggled with issues of addiction and divorce, and she's come out on the other side to help other people with those issues. She's an executive relationship and divorce coach at In Your Corner Divorce Coaching, a published author of Seconds and Inches, a memoir, and she's also contributed to the Huffington Post. She's the host of 2 podcasts, In Your Corner Divorce Coaching and Northstar Big Book. She's the mother of 3 wild boys, a sober warrior, and a beautiful mess. So thank you, Carly, for coming on my show, Catalyst for Change, Stories of Resiliency. I really loved looking at your story. Can you tell me a little bit more about what's been a catalyst for change in your life?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for letting me be on here. It's an honor. And my main basis in life is I believe that everyone has a story and all of our stories need to be heard. So I love what you're doing with your podcast.
Thank you.
I think it's hard to pinpoint the beginning, but I think for me, the biggest changes came, I grew up in an alcoholic home, and until I was about 13, my parents were actively drinking and using. So I needed to grow up really fast. By the time I was 9, I remember being suicidal. And we were told we were not allowed to tell anyone about what was going on, and we lived in a really nice neighborhood, so no one could look and see on the outside, oh, you're a mess.
Yeah.
And that's something I always want to remember, is that we always judge each other on our outsides, but you actually have no idea what's going on with someone's insides.
That is so true.
Right? So along the way, I got to a place where I just couldn't stand the pain and the, just discomfort within myself. And when I found alcohol and drugs, I felt like they all say, I felt like I had arrived. My parents got sober when I was around 13, and I started using a little bit before then, and we just kind of missed each other. They were heavily active in sobriety and are still sober today. And they really started, especially my mom, really started showing up in my life. But I think I was so angry and so used to doing everything by myself that I just didn't want to have any parental anything. So I just went on high achieving, doing my own thing. And by the time I got to college, I was a full-blown late stage alcoholic at 19, which is hard to imagine, but I was. And all that goes with that, the depression, the suicidal thoughts, the lying and manipulation, and I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I wanted the answer to be in a pill, and I did not want to stop what I was doing.
And so you used the tools that they use to
yeah,
alcohol and drugs. You saw that being used in your home, so you thought, well, that's the way.
Look at you. Yes, I used the tools that I saw in my home to deal with my life, and they worked. And I got to tell you that people are very confused about this concept, but alcohol and drugs were not my problem. They were my solution. My problem was I didn't know how to deal with my life, and I didn't know how to function, and I didn't know how to live, and I certainly did not know how to exist feeling uncomfortable. I would have rather done anything than just be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So long story short, I ended up trying to get sober myself, being on a lot of different medications, with a lot of different diagnoses, and I didn't do the work that was necessary in order to stay sober. And I ended up trying to take my own life when I was 6 days sober. In Athens, Ohio, which is Ohio University. If anyone knows it, it's a party town. And that was on January 26, 1999. I had no alcohol or drugs in my body. So the thought to take my own life was completely conscious. And if anyone out there that's listening has ever either known someone who is suicidal or been there themselves, the best way I can explain it is this. To me, it felt like at the time that I was causing so much emotional pain and damage to everyone around me that even though it was going to hurt when they found out what happened, I felt like they would eventually be better off. And I know that that's not true today. And I
Yeah.
know that that's the thoughts of someone who can't see another way.
Yeah.
And luckily, the universe had another plan for me. And after swallowing about 90 pills and laying on the bathroom floor and waiting to die, there was a voice that was very, very clear inside of me. And it said, Carly, get up or you're going to die. And the guy I was living with came in, and the police was called, and they came in and they called the ambulance, and I went to the hospital and they pumped my stomach and I drank 2 bottles of charcoal. They said I couldn't leave without medical consult, psych consult.
Yeah.
And I don't do well being caged, and I ended up signing myself out against medical advice.
Yeah.
And I left that hospital and I walked home, and my apartment was 1.5 miles away, and it was the middle of winter, and I had shoes and shorts and a flannel on. And I went to the waiting room to bum a smoke so I could figure out my next move. And on that walk home, because I always knew, like, I could figure out my next move if you just stopped talking and gave me a few minutes, because I would con somebody or lie or smile or flirt or whatever I needed to do to get what I needed. And on that walk home, I believe I was given something that I refer to as the gift of desperation. And the reason why I was told it's a gift is what seems like the worst moment of your entire life ends up being a gift and a blessing, which is basically what I'll be talking to you about with my tools, is the perspective. And so on that walk home, the gift I was given was I was so desperate and I was so tired and miserable and out of plans that I had nowhere else to go but back for help. And I've been on that journey ever since. I have not put a drop of anything in my body in 21 years. You know, the life that's come from that has been a beautiful one. It's been up and down, but it's been pretty intense and beautiful. And I wanted to share something with you that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So my memoir just came out, and it's called Seconds and Inches, and it's all about the seconds and inches we all go through that change everything. And right before it came out, my husband and I went to like a cabin near my college town, which I had not been to in 20 years. I reached out to the police department there, Athens Police Department, because from doing the research on my memoir for my other family issues, I found a lot of information from police reports. That's pretty cool. And so I asked, and they had the police report, and I said, oh, I plan on coming to pick it up if that's okay. And they're like, oh, no, we can attach it to an email right now, which was so foreign to me. Like, it's usually really hard to get things, you know? And the woman was so nice, and I opened it up and I'd never seen it. And I've always told this story about what happened that night, and I never once considered the name I would see on the police report. And so at the top of the police report, the subject said suicide, which was very sobering. And then it said the name of the officer, and it said P.O. Shane Hartley. And it's interesting that that you've specialized working with veterans, who I have more respect for than anyone, because I wanted to say to that police officer, thank you for coming to my apartment that night and saving my life. And I'd never even considered him until I saw his name, because I was just telling my story, but I didn't think about like how he had to come into my apartment and see this young girl who tried taking her own life.
Yeah.
And so through a series of awesome moments, like really quickly, I was able to communicate with him via email that same day. And he was deployed in the military somewhere that is not known, not here. And he wrote to me and he said that he's never had anyone thank him ever, what it meant for him. And we sent him one of my books. And I sent him a picture of my children that are alive because of him, and some stories. And, you know, that's like the whole point that I found, is that people just want to be acknowledged.
Yeah, that's so true. I bet that made him feel so good, especially while being deployed and maybe lonely, missing home. And
Yeah.
then
And he
having
said, like, he's like, as military and police right now, we're not getting a lot of love. And
yeah.
I said, I can understand that. And not in a political way, just in, you know, everybody needs to be acknowledged for the work that they do.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And there's a lot of people that have done a lot of good in the military and in the police force.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're not all bad, but there are
Right.
some bad things that are going on right now. But
Yes.
yeah. Oh, that's so powerful. And so tell me more about your tools that you mentioned. How did
Awesome.
you stay sober? Yeah, that's pretty tough.
So like a good student that I was, which was the student in high school that spent 4 hours working on a cheat sheet that could fit in her big pen instead of just studying, I did everything possible to not do what I needed to do to get better,
Mhm.
because the work is scary. When you need to change, we resist that. And so I tried doing everything that wasn't what I was supposed to do because I didn't want to do something that was hard. And when that clearly didn't work, I got to a place where I was like, I'm willing to do anything. And that's back to that gift of desperation. We can hit it again and again in our life. And some people like me have to be really uncomfortable in order to do something different. And so what I started to do was I started to finally follow directions for the first time in my whole life. And I asked somebody for help. And they took me through the textbook that we study in recovery. And they kept telling me to highlight and underline things and read them and look them up in the dictionary. And I thought, why? And the woman said, because one day you're going to be taking other people through this book, and you're going to need to know how to do that. And I looked at her like she was insane, because nobody was asking me to do anything. And what's so cool about that is I'm now 21 years sober. I've probably taken more than multiple thousand people through the book.
Yeah.
Um, in person, I've taken hundreds and hundreds, and I created a podcast separate from my work one that is called Northstar Big Book. And that goes all over the world. And it's just me taking people through the book that I thought no one would ever want me to talk about. And what I found in that book, and what I found when I'm working with this woman, was that all of my issues in life, even the ones that weren't my fault,
Yeah.
were me holding on to a resentment or fear that was blocking me from the kind of life I wanted.
So
And
holding on to resentment and fear.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And that the only way I was going to get free was I was going to have to do a lot of work to unblock myself. And the way that I talk about it, that is like, that makes the most sense for me, is I think of, and I think this can apply to anyone who's listening, regardless of what their scenario is I pictured myself in a burning building,
Hmm.
and I pictured myself in like a room that was disgusting that I put myself in. And I always joke about it, with people in recovery, it's like a frat house or a crack house. You can't really tell the difference. But for people that don't have an addiction issue, it could be in a bad relationship or a family situation that's not helpful, healthy, or a different kind of disease. But regardless, we're stuck in that room. And
Yeah.
the room's on fire, and I'm looking around, and it doesn't appear that there's any way out, which is that suicide place. And I hear the fire trucks and the ambulances outside, but they can't get to me and I can't get to them, because the only exit of that room is a door that leads to a very skinny hallway. But the hallway is completely stuck with like a hoarder's show of boxes and bags and garbage and mattresses and doors and all sorts of junk that I've
Hmm.
been carrying with me that I use to block people off so they don't hurt me. And I say to the people I'm working with that stuff that's in that hallway, those are our stories, our reasons, like, oh my goodness, if you had this, you'd understand. Our anger, our resentments, our fears, all the shame, all of it, right? And anyone can relate to that, whatever they're holding on to that they can't look at themselves in the mirror about.
Yeah.
And with the woman I started working with, we basically pulled everything out of that hallway and identified what needed to be returned to someone else, what needed to be thrown out, what needed to be repaired. And I went about the process of doing that. And that process got me to a place where I work really, really hard today, where I can have an open hallway to help, for me, is my higher power, which is God or universe, but not in a religious sense. And
Yeah.
or those firefighters, being able to rescue me. No one could get to me because I blocked myself off. And so the main tool I use today is continuously working to make sure I stay unblocked, because I get blocked every day,
Yeah.
and connecting with that, whatever that power is for whoever finds it, and then helping others. It's those three things: clean house, trust God, and help others. And so those three basic ideas have led to so many more tools, but those will never go away.
So I'm really curious. I mean, you mentioned getting blocked every day. How do you unblock at the end of the day?
Such a good question. So I don't wait till the end of the day. Um,
Okay.
Imagine you were walking down the street and someone threw up on you. Would you
Yeah.
think go to work and continue?
No.
You'd want to go change, you'd be disgusted, right? So, but
Yeah.
what that happens in life all day long, we get in a fight with somebody, we get a bad call, bad text, bad email, and we just take that vomit and we just keep going. And so what I was taught was I take those tools that I learned in that first big unblocking of that hallway, and I do it right then, right there. I usually use it in a text message or a phone call, or I write it down in on a paper if I can't get to somebody. But now with technology, it's almost impossible to not reach somebody. And I just do a quick little inventory, and I start off with what am I upset about and what am I afraid about. And it's not a story. It's just like listing what you found, right? And then I look and I say, how am I looking at this in a dishonest way? So, for example, I am divorced and my co-parents and I work really well together, and once in a while we don't. And so let's say I was resentful at a call we just had,
Hmm.
and I'm afraid that because of that argument we just had, it's going to affect something that we had planned in our co-parenting relationship. And then I
Yeah.
ask myself, how am I being dishonest about this? And the dishonesty is that I used a voice tone that probably he didn't like, because he doesn't like when I use a certain tone.
Hmm.
And I expected him to give me an answer quickly when I know from knowing this person for almost 20 years that he does not answer quickly.
Yeah.
And the selfish part of that is I wanted my answer when I wanted it. And instead of presenting it to him and waiting for him to think about it, I pushed, and then it turned into a fight. And the reason why I do it like that is I need to figure out from how I'm feeling and yuck. And I need to figure out what are the facts. And the facts are I just pushed somebody that I know doesn't do well being pushed. And I expected him to behave in a way that he's never behaved. And
Yeah.
that information makes it so I can feel free. And then I take a breath and I picture that beautiful hallway that I keep clean today. And I ask for that to be removed from my hallway. And then I think about what can I change about within me. If I don't, I probably owe him an amends, which means I need to repair how I handled that. So I'm going to reach out to him and say, hey, I did not use my words correctly, and I want you to take as much time as you need. Let's just put this on the table for now. And then I go to myself and I say, what can I change within myself? And that is where I was talking to you before, which is the biggest gift I've ever been given, and that's perspective. And
Okay.
so I can change the way I expect things. I can change the way I have an attitude, and I can change my perspective. And that has become the biggest gift of all. And the perspective always leads to gratitude, which is how I survive. And
Yeah.
so perspective for me is about taking the same situation and looking at it from a different angle and seeing how my two favorite words in the whole world are get to. And so when we think to ourselves, oh, I have to go to the grocery store, or I have to pay this bill, I say to someone who's saying it, no, you get to.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
right, it changes it. So you
Hmm.
have to pay this bill. You're lucky that you have enough money to pay it. There's tons of people in the world right now, especially right now, that don't even have that money to pay it. You know, I have a son who's got medical issues and they're pretty scary. And instead of saying I have to take him to the hospital, I say I get to. I have medical insurance, I have a car, and I have a son that's alive right now.
Yeah.
So it's all about changing the way we're looking at everything.
That is so powerful. Now, where did you learn these tools?
So almost all of the inventorying I learned in my recovery, and the get to, I'm a big like reader, listener, seeker of anything that's going to help me change the way I look at my life. I want to show you something. So I want you to look around the room right now and count 5 things that are read out loud.
Okay.
So say them out loud, what you see.
I see the Google browser has red in it, and I see
Awesome.
there's a light in my room that's red, and I see a piece on the lamp that has a red color.
Perfect. 2 more.
And I see my socks are red.
Yep.
Um, I see my something on my laptop is red.
Awesome. That took
Yeah,
less than a minute. Was it challenging to find the red?
a little bit.
Like Do you want to like cry about it challenging, or just like, yeah, I had to
No,
look for it?
just like, oh, I need to look for this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the concept is called Look for the Red. It's not mine, but it's one of my favorite ideas. And the
Yeah.
idea is that it's two things. It's a great tool for anyone that's stressed out. So if you in the moment do what you just did, it keeps you in the moment, which is the only place where we can be calm, because when we're thinking about the future or upset about the past, we get stuck. So in
Yeah.
that moment, you get calm enough to actually look around. Then you get the reminder that if you want to find red, you'll find it. And if you want to find how crappy your life is, you'll find it. And if you want to find how beautiful and lucky you are, you'll find it. And whatever you choose to look for, you'll see. And that shift in I get to choose what I'm going to pay attention to is priceless.
I'm writing all this down. This is great. These are great tips. Now, do you talk about that in your Northstar Big Book podcast?
I do. So that Big Book podcast is all about the literature. So if you're not in recovery, it probably is boring. If you're just interested in like listening to someone that's talking about like the growth of spirituality and all that stuff, it'll be interesting. But in my
Mm.
other podcast, which is In Your Corner Divorce, that is about, so when I went through my divorce, obviously that wasn't a good time. And who wants to do that? But 50% of marriages end in divorce, but nobody wants to consider that that's a possibility, or I didn't want to
Yeah.
consider that, right?
No, that's
And
true.
I had 3 beautiful children and a beautiful house. And again, on the outside, everything looked perfect. And on the inside, it was not. And when I went through it, I found this man who ended up becoming one of my soul brothers. His name is Scott Simon. And he actually has something called Scare Your Soul. You're for sure going to want to interview him. He's awesome. And he taught me about the concept of the North Star. So do you know about the concept of the North Star?
No, tell me about that.
Okay. So he said to me, so the reason why I sought him out was I was told that he is doing divorce well. Like he's like a happy divorce person. And if you hear about divorce, all you hear about is the gloom and doom, and you're going to mess up your children, and it's going to be horrible. And I can't believe you're doing this, and you should just stay. And
Yeah.
it's so expensive, and it's going to be miserable. And it's terrifying because nobody makes a decision to get a divorce because they're bored. Like
No.
that was the hardest decision I've ever made in my entire life. Way harder than getting sober. And
Yeah.
so because I loved my children and I did not want that to happen. I wanted so badly for that not to be our story. And so I sought him out because I didn't want to do it the way that everyone was telling me it was going to happen. And I'm also someone that if you tell me it's going to be one way, I'm like, no, it's not. So
Yeah.
when everyone was saying it was going to be miserable and don't do this, I sought Scott out, and he said to me, this is his concept. He said that, do you know what the North Star is? And I said, well, it's like a star. He said, it's the star that sailors use when they're in the dark and they're lost at sea and they don't know how to get home.
True.
And they
Yeah.
look up to the North Star. And once they can spot the North Star, then they know, oh, I know which way to go. And
Yeah.
he said, my children would be my North Star. And that when I was lost at sea in the dark storms of the divorce and thereafter, that I would look to them to guide me, and I would make all decisions based on what is best for them, not what is best for me or getting back at anyone or anger or feelings.
Yes. Yes.
And so from that concept, I have not only lived that, but now I'm coaching and guiding parents and individuals who do not want to mess up their kids of how to do that. And it is a true choice.
Yeah.
It is not easy. It is so much more beneficial to them. And what I found out along the way is it's not, I just thought that it just won't mess up the kids, will be good for them. I
Hmm.
didn't realize until I started doing a ton of research and like having anonymous questionnaires and letters from adult children of divorce and children of divorce, that the negative effect of divorce when it's done the typical, I can't stand you, I'm never going to talk to him, do you know what she did, do you know what he did, I can't be in a birthday party together,
Mm.
that generational effect goes on in like that ripple effect in ways that you can't even fathom.
Yeah.
And the
Epigenetics, right? The
right,
the
yeah,
thought
and
of, yeah.
right. And then like let's say you were a child of a horrible divorce and then you went out in relationships and you kept harming people because of your experience, and then you finally found someone, you guys got married, but you didn't know how to do it properly because you had that experience, right? And then you had children, and that was your hurt is coming onto them, and it just generations and generations of pain.
Yeah.
And what I found from doing it this way is we get to create generations of a different story when it comes to divorce.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm a divorce advocate. Like, I don't want all people to get divorced, but if
No,
you're in
no.
that position, then there is a different way to go about it. And again, it's all back to, what choice do I want to make?
Yeah. Yeah, so you can choose to be friends with your ex-partner, and you can choose to have a good relationship without being married still.
Right. And you can choose to show up for your kids because it's not about you. So
Yeah.
putting aside anyone that's got like mental health issues, just typical regular humans that get divorced, the only reason they can't go to the same birthday party or be at the same holiday or be at a game and sit in the same section or not talk negatively about the other parent is because they're selfish.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That makes
So,
sense.
right. So there's tools I take them through and there's work I take them through that gets them to the place where they get to make a decision. And I think that the most empowering thing that all of us can remember is we get to make that decision.
Yeah. Yep. That is in our realm of decision making ability, that we can make that decision to be friends, to be there as a
Right.
person.
And you don't
Yeah.
have to mean it. You just have to show up and smile. Like, no one cares, right? All that matters is that we don't harm our children. And it harms us too when we are miserable and stay
Yeah.
stuck.
No, that's so true. And those tools for, staying friends after divorce or having a good relationship, staying sober, making sure you think of that hallway, like clearing out your stuff, making sure you clear it out right away. What could I have done better? I
Yeah.
love those tools. They're very impactful, and they can help people in any situation, not just
Yeah.
divorce.
And do you know what I do with that man, Scott Simon?
What do
Is
you do?
every single night, and you should totally, we always tell people, we give them a challenge that they should do it for a month. So you need to find a partner in your life. It doesn't have to be intimate, just a friend or whatever. And you're going to text them every single night. We do it over Messenger. And we text them 5 things we're grateful for that day. And they don't have to be like butterflies and rainbows. Like some days it was like, I didn't kill anybody, even though I felt so much rage. And we just send them every single night with the date back and forth. We're on year 4 this fall.
Oh,
And we
nice.
vowed to do it until one of us is no longer here. And when you know at the end of the day that you have to tell another person what you're grateful for, you have to kind of focus, like you're looking for that red. You have to think about, what am I grateful for? Like, look at your day.
Yeah.
Because we sometimes say, I had a horrible day. And you're like, really? Was it a horrible day or just a bunch of horrible moments?
Yeah.
Because the whole day couldn't have been bad.
That's true. That's true. And you're searching for those things that you can tell that person at the end of the day. I
Yes.
really like that. Gratitude is a common theme right now because we have so much to be grateful for. There's so many silver linings, even during a time of crisis and pandemic and everything that's
Right.
going on in the world. There's so many silver linings. I wouldn't have started this podcast. I wouldn't have met you.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's a silver lining that happened
and it
today.
really is. And you know what?
Yeah.
The reality is there's always someone who's struggling harder. And
Yeah.
who am I to think that I have the worst story and poor me? Because it doesn't do anything, right? So
No.
I've got all these families on Facebook that are constantly complaining about like being stuck at home or virtual school. And look, they're not easy. I'm working full time and I have 3 children that are homeschooling and it's crazy pants. But
Yep.
3 doors down, my middle son's best friend has cancer. And it's
Yeah.
all over his torso. And his mom is not worrying about virtual school. She's worrying about his counts and his blood levels and chemo and like
Yeah.
surgeries. Like I will take my miserable virtual school life over
Yeah.
cancer any day. And so it's all about zooming out from your life and being like, like when you're like on your screen and you take your little fingers to zoom out when you're like
Hmm.
looking, like that's what we need to do because we're
Zoom
so
out.
stuck in ourself.
Yeah. No, that's so true. Well, very good. I really enjoyed speaking with you today, and I
Thank
I
you.
learned so much about how to stay grateful about that. I love the analogy you used of the hallway where
Yeah.
people can't get to you if you block yourself in with all this junk in your hallway, like the
Yes.
hoarder's mess. I love that analogy, and I'm going to use that from
Can
now
I
on.
tell you something, Jessica, about that real quickly?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if the stuff that's in the hallway you didn't put there, like let's say you were younger and someone put it there,
Yeah.
whatever that story was, as an adult today, we have the tools to take it out.
Yep.
So it's not like we're saying that if something horrible happened to you when you were younger, that it's your fault. We're not saying that at all. It's the idea is, okay, it happened. You're in your 30s or 40s or 50s. Go do something about it.
Yeah.
Go get help and get it out. You get to choose if you want to keep it in there or if you want to take it out.
Yep. That's so true. Well, wonderful. Now, can you think of anything maybe we didn't touch on that you want to make sure to mention?
Oh my goodness, there's so many things. Well, I have to say the two things that I do that if I don't do, I will not exist is I start every single day with a little meditation, and I have to exercise every day because I need it spiritual and mental. If I don't like that physical, if I don't get my energy out in some way, I
Yeah.
don't feel okay. And I'm a disciplined person, so I do better with every day than once in a while. And that's just like basic. Like I just have to basically take care of my body and my mind.
Yeah. Okay. So meditation, making sure you know what you're grateful for and being accountable to somebody else at the end of the day. Those are some good tips. And exercise. Oh, I'm the
Yeah.
same way. Exercise is really
If I
important.
don't, I'm not nice. And you know what else is really cool? And I promise this is my last one. Something I do, and everyone that's listening can do this, and it's so easy. If you're on any social media or texting or whatever, you just send a message and a picture to your community and you say, hey, in the next 3 weeks, I'm going to be collecting used backpacks. And if you drop off a used backpack, can you put some non-perishable food items or warm socks that are used but are clean and some hats and gloves?
Yeah.
And then my kids and I take them, and after 3 weeks, we drop them off downtown and we just give them to people that are homeless and we walk away. And it's free. It literally costs $0.
Yeah.
Everybody feels good. Like the people that you're asking for help, they want to. You're not asking them to pay money. You're saying go in your house and take things that you don't need,
Yeah.
blankets that you don't need, right? And you remind them like we have so much. And those kind of little acts make such a difference in people's lives.
And raising children that are giving and empathetic and that care about others in the world.
Which is so hard to do.
Yeah, and with everything that's going on and all the distractions we can put in their way.
It's just so much. Here's the thing. It's so easy to find someone that you can help. It's just when we don't look for it, we can't see it.
Yeah.
And you
No,
don't have to have a lot of money to do it. Like I don't have a lot of money. It's just about like, well, let's make cookies and drop them off at someone, like just whatever it is to get out of yourself.
Yeah, simple things like making cookies or making dinner or making something for somebody else.
Or
That's
you know
really
what,
good.
even call somebody and say, I just want you to know that you're doing a really great job at something. And then they feel like, wow, someone paid attention.
Yeah, that's good. I really like that. And
I'm
it'll
so
make
glad
someone
you did
else's
this.
day.
This is so awesome.
Yeah, this is fun. Well, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, Carly, and I hope we can keep in touch after this podcast.
Me too. I hope you are wonderful and I wish you well.
Okay, I wish you well as well, Carly.
Thanks.
The Catalyst for Change, and my name is Jessica Huckabee, your host. Join us next week for another story of resiliency. And please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and feel free to leave me a comment or email me at catalystforchange20@gmail.com.